Hi, my name is Caleb Lindsay, and this is going to be my week 4 submission for FTE211, which is the 1911 Advanced Armorers course. And the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and clear my firearm. Okay? So I already removed the feed source. There's no magazine in here. We'll lock it to the rear, and then I'll visually and physically inspect, make sure there's no cartridge in the chamber, which there's not. So we are safe. Okay, so the first thing it's asking me to do for this week is a polish on the feed ramp, which is technically two parts. Okay, so I've got the feed ramp going from the frame here, which you can see there, and the feed ramp that's on the bottom of the barrel goes into the chamber. Okay, so looking really close at both of these, I don't know if I can get it on the camera that well. Um, they don't look that bad. Okay, so I know the lecture this week was talking about using sandpaper and a dowel to go ahead and smooth this thing out, but it's already pretty smooth. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to do the polish on it, and we'll see what happens. It doesn't take very much. So let me try to get that gap better. Okay, so I've still got the gap that I'm supposed to have in between the barrel and the frame, and maybe some better light. There we go. And I got the pretty good polish. Not too bad. Okay, so for the next part of this, I'm going to be going over cleaning. Okay, so the first thing I want to bring up is there's technically like two types of cleaning, or I guess categories of cleaning. And that would be just your normal field strip, which is going to be just taking the firearm apart, and it's like three different components. Okay, um, so I mean you'll remove the magazine, and you can disassemble that if you need to, clean your follower. But primarily you'll just be taking your slide off of the frame, removing the barrel, the recoil spring, your guide rod, your bushing, all that stuff, and then you'll have your frame separately, and those are going to be the components that you're going to be cleaning, like sub components, I guess I'd call it. And then you also have deep cleaning, which is kind of like what I've got right now. Okay, where you completely disassemble the firearm. You're going to just completely clean every single part. The way that I would do either of these types of cleaning is you have to start with solvents. Oh, sorry, before I get to that, the lecture did bring up that there is one thing that people need to know about new firearms, in that when you get a new firearm, it's going to have like this packing oil or packing grease on it, because the manufacturer doesn't know how long that firearm is going to be in storage, basically. So you're going to want to remove that. So what you're going to be doing, and then we can kind of go into like all cleanings here, because you're going to do the same thing with this initial cleaning as you would anytime you're actually cleaning your firearm, like after the range or something. But you're gonna start with your solvents, okay? Like SDI supplied this stuff right here, which is this um, Spartan Systems Carbon Destroyer, okay? And you can start with the barrel, right? You're gonna just coat the barrel with the solvent, and you can also use like a patch, like I just did recently. Coat the patch with your solvent, run it through the barrel a couple times, and then you're gonna set this off to the side, let it sit. Okay. So what I want to bring up is that you need to let your solvents actually do their job. Okay. Their job is to break down all of the carbon and build up and all this stuff, and it needs to be able to do that so you can actually get it off of your firearm. Okay. And then you're going to start your scrubbing. You can use a toothbrush for light stuff. You can use like a nylon brush for heavy stuff. You're going to be I utilize a lot of Q-tips and patches. And you're going to be getting all the dirt, grime, carbon buildup, all of that stuff off your firearm. And you're going to be focusing on like every single component individually while you do this. And then after that's done, after you've got all of the gunk off your firearm, then you get to start oiling. Okay. The first thing I wanted to bring up was that, and the lecture talked about this as well, too much oil can be a bad thing. Okay, like so recently, especially for like 1911s, just because I like them, I support them. I'm originally from Arkansas. Wilson Combat is made in Arkansas, so I like their product. But for like the 1911s and stuff, I have a lot of metal on metal, moving, sliding, touching. So I use this stuff right here, this Ultra Lube or Ultima Lube from Wilson Combat. But too much oil can be a bad thing, right? So if you're using too much oil, what can end up happening is you're going to get a lot of debris built up inside of that oil because it kind of traps it, right? It's going to hold it in there, which could affect your firearm. Yeah, so that could be a bad thing. But when I'm talking about applying oil, you're going to want to put oil on anything that really is just any parts that could be rubbing or sliding against each other. Is what you're going to be using lubrication for. So stuff like our the slide rails and the frame, right? All that stuff's going to be moving on each other. The lecturer also brought up that you want to do like a light coat of oil on the top of the barrel because you got to remember that thing's going to be sliding around in the bushing. Okay, stuff like that. Okay, so in part 3. It's saying that, or is asking us to explain how you can educate a customer to spot and avoid ammunition induced malfunctions, what damage and or injury may occur if these principles are not understood. Okay, so I feel like this is something, and I think this may be just a personal thing, but I feel like this is something that I would talk to a customer about if they asked me about it. And I'm not going to go out of my way for every single customer to explain ammunition problems, but if they were to ask, I would definitely educate them on it. Also, because of time restraints on this video, I can't go into every single thing that you might run into with ammunition. Simple ones, right? Like reloaded ammunition. I don't personally buy reloaded ammunition from anybody. I only buy factory ammunition. One of the reasons why, okay, is over pressurization. It can be extremely dangerous if that ammunition is just packed with way too much propellant. It could cause damage to the firearm. It could cause damage to the individual using that firearm. There's a YouTuber on here. I think his name is like Kentucky Ballistics or something on YouTube. It's a really great channel. But he had an incident where he was using some really hot ammunition with a 50 caliber rifle, and it exploded in his face and it almost ended his life. Luckily it did not. Okay, but that's one thing. Okay, there's a ton of things. Another one that I wanted to bring up was like rim damage. Okay, rim damage can basically tell you a story of what's happening inside of your firearm, in the sense that, like, if you start seeing rim damage on your cartridges or your casings after you fire, or if you're taking apart your firearm and you take out your extractor and you see like burring or damage on your extractor, that could be a big problem. Like last week we went over critical dimensions, and one of the dimensions on your extractor, or the dimension that you need to pay attention to on your extractor, is tension. Okay, so if tension is off, or if you're like trying to load a single round into your firearm and then ride the slide forward, so your extractor has to go over that rim anyways, you could be causing damage to your firearm, and you're going to end up needing to replace that extractor, or like there's a lot. Another would be like case swelling. Right, so case swelling is basically your ammunition telling you that you have too much room in your chamber. Okay, so it's allowing that case to swell when it's fired beyond what it's supposed to. Okay, there's a bunch. Another one is like when you constantly reload your self-defense ammo or your personal defense ammo, and you're just reloading that top round over and over and over, you might be actually pushing that projectile, the bullet, down into the casing, which could also cause a lot of problems. Like there's just a lot. Okay? And so we'll move on to section or part 4. Okay, as a gunsmith, should you train your customer on proper grip and stance principles? Okay, this is another one that I feel like I would bring up to a customer if they were to ask me. Okay, if they come into if I had a shop and they came to me and they said that they cannot get a good grouping or something like that, then I would go and I would ask them, how are you standing? How are you holding the firearm? What does your grip look like? Stuff like that. Because one problem, especially with 45 ACP, that I've noticed in the past, and this is just like shooting with friends and stuff, is a thing called limp wristing, and the lecture went into this as well. It's basically when you don't have good enough grip on the firearm and you're not supporting the firearm very well, and basically it's not cycling properly and you're not holding it good, so you're not going to get a good grouping, all that stuff. It's a short recoil operated firearm. Okay, everything, the entire cycle of operations is designed off of the recoil of the ammunition. So if you're not stopping the firearm in your hands and allowing it to recoil naturally, it's not going to work properly, and you're not going to get a very good shot. Okay, and then the last part, part 5, it's asking us to describe why it's important to understand firearm and accessory operation prior to attaching any accessory to the firearm, and then give a specific example of when this understanding would be acceptable. Okay, so before you start adding accessories, like stuff like I did this mainspring housing magwell combo. Okay, it's not going to affect much of the firearm. Like I even used the original mainspring in it, just so I wasn't changing tensions and stuff. But you have to understand how the firearm operates before you're adding accessories, because if you start adding accessories and changing parts, like critical parts of the firearm, you could affect the operation of the firearm. Stuff like I know that nowadays, especially like the sights on this TSOS that we got from school, they're not great sights, but they're like that on purpose. Okay, when this firearm was originally designed, they used tiny little sights so they didn't get snagged on stuff. Nowadays, like on a personal defense firearm, I would definitely switch these sights out. And a lot of people these days put optics on their firearms, which is, I think it's a great idea. It's cool. I like optics. But you're also going to be changing the weight of this slide. Okay, so this would be like the specific thing. Okay, so if you're putting like a gigantic optic on the rear end of this sight or slide, excuse me, you're changing the weight and balance of this thing. Okay, so because you're changing the weight and balance of this, you might have to change out your recoil spring. Same with like slide cuts. Okay, so if you're doing like extreme material removal on your slide to make them like a cool looking custom slide, or you're adding ventilation, keep the barrel cool, stuff like that, it's the same thing. You're removing weight at that point from your slide, which could affect the operation of the firearm. So you really have to understand how the firearm operates and understand what you're doing to that and how it could affect your cycle of operations.